So we're now going to assemble the machine for a horizontal wall panel installation. First thing is to remove the actual pads from the machine. They've been placed in that position for transport. Just lay the pads to one side, making sure that the rubber seals are clear of the ground. Having removed those pads, you now need to insert one of these extension bars into each side of the machine. When you're putting the bar in, just make sure the suction pad hoses are on top and bottom of the bar. The bar can be mounted at 90 degrees to that, but for a wall application you need to mount it exactly as shown. Obviously make sure the locking pins are in position and secured by the R-clips. Once the arms are on, you need to put the T-pieces on the end of the arms. Again, so the T is in an upright position. And again, secure with a locking pin and an R-clip. And finally, place the suction pads on the nylon parts of the cross arms with the hose pointing towards the machine. Once again, lock into position with the pin and the R-clip. For this particular demonstration, we've chosen a machine with 4 125 kilo suction pads. So when assembled, this machine will have a working load of 500 kilos. Depending on your application, you may have the same pads, or you may have smaller pads which are rated at 100 kilos each, or you may have the very large pads which are rated at 200 kilos each. And we'll choose those pads to suit the panels you're lifting. The final thing to install will be the secondary safety straps at each end of the machine. And install those so that the pin is on the front face of the arm. Pinned and locked in position as all components are. And then the final thing to do is to connect the suction pads through the hoses all the way to the machine. All the hoses are on quick release couplings. To release them, you just push them together, pull the collar back and pull it apart. And when you put them together, you should hear a positive click and just test that they're actually secure. And obviously they just then connect through to the machine. You'll noticed earlier that Neil removed these blanking plugs that are sometimes in place to protect the outlets. They need to be removed obviously before you connect the suction pad hoses. So a final check on this machine before we do anything else. So you've got the machine assembled. All the critical joints are secured with a locking pin with an R-clip in position. The suction pads are again locked into position with pins and clips. The hoses are continuous from the suction pads all the way to the machine, so all 4 suction pads are connected to the machine. When you're assembling the machine, it's best to assemble it in the cradle, just as we've shown you. And when you're ready to use it, what you do then is simply pull out this locking pin. There's an R-clip behind, and you can pull out the locking pin, and the machine can be lifted out of the cradle. So just a few more words before we actually start using the machine. The Clad Boy is a battery operated machine. Inside the main cabinet you'll see the battery, the vacuum pumps, a battery charger and various components. There's no real need for you to be inside this machine. If you leave the door closed and the machine stored upright in its cradle, it is a fairly weather-tight container. But if you actually lay it down and expose it to the weather, rain will get inside the machine and cause problems at some stage. When the machine arrives on site, the battery will be fully charged. The charger cable is inside this little box, just needs connecting to a 110 volt supply. And the back of the cable box you'll see a small LED. When it's connected to a power supply, that LED will show, and when the battery is flat it will be red, it will go through amber to green when it's fully charged. We recommend that you charge the machine overnight every night, no matter how long you've used it the previous day. You need to make sure this machine is fully charged and ready for use. On the side of the machine, I'll show the function of these later, but you've got the on-off switch. Push it to start the machine and pull it to switch it off. It's best that you switch it on the morning and leave it switched on for the whole working shift. Only switch it off at the end of the shift and when you put in the machine on charge. You've also got a water separator down here. You can lift wet panels and you can operate in the rain with this machine. Just keep your eye on that water trap, because any water on the panels will accumulate in there, and at some point, probably at the end of the day when the machine's switched off, you just need to drain this water trap with this little plastic screw. Just unscrew it, let the water dribble out and then retighten that. But be careful, it's a plastic screw in a metal thread, so don't cross thread it and don't over tighten it. On the other side of the machine, when the machine's switched on, you'll see that this voltmeter will start working, and that'll give you an indication of the state of the battery. The Clad Boy is a 12 volt machine, so when this is switched on, I'll show you later, that needle will only register around about 12 to 12.5 volts. It will never register the full scale up to 16 volts. So if it sits around half the scale, 12.5 volts, the machine is charged. And the final thing to point out is this vacuum control lever. When we're using the machine, we're ready to put suction on, we just slide the lever into the suction position, and when ready to release suction, we pull the pin out and slide the lever to the red zone. Okay, so I'm going to stop this video now, and we're going to put our machine over our panel and I'll restart.